Hello, this is Deborah Yao with Redirecting, and recently I did a video where I was talking about purchasing land and small cabins to construct a tiny home on the land for very little money down, zero to no money down on the land and very little down on the structure. What I'm going to do here in this video is I'm going to show you a series of videos of what others are doing in the way of small tiny home communities. Now, I know this is not for everyone. I'm just putting this out here basically to inspire, because I do see that the need for alternative housing and living situations is on the rise. A lot of people are homeless. Of course, some of the videos are targeted to the homeless community. Some are not. Some are just communities of like-minded people coming together. So I'm going to go ahead and roll the clip, and I'll be back at the end just to say a little bit more.
The tiny house trend has been gaining a lot of popularity over the last few years, and now you can try it out right here in Central Texas. Tanya joins us on the couch to tell us a little bit more about this. Very interesting.
Going small.
Oh, man.
Yes.
I know. We talked about whether or not we could do it. I think I could, but definitely a change. You know, this community is somewhere in East Travis County. They're a tiny house community away from high rises and traffic. The people who live there know each other very well, but every once in a while they invite guests to try it out or even move in.
And I've always wanted to live very small.
Reba Parker has lived in her tiny home for about 7 months now.
I love living with less things. It's wonderful to wake up and I have just what I need and nothing more.
She moved to Texas from Charleston, South Carolina. Her kids moved out and she didn't need a big home anymore. So she downsized, big time.
And I don't miss anything that I gave up. So there's not a day where I wake up and say, I wish I would have kept this. I love my house and I love the objects I have. It's just what I need.
Reba's just one of the 30 residents at Austin Live Work. The tiny home community rests in far East Travis County, away from the city lights and sounds. Residents here do more than just come home to sleep.
We have communal meals, we meet together, we plan projects together. It's all that gels people together.
Marnie Kaw is the co-founder of Austin Live Work. She came from a gerontology background and tells us research shows that people live happy and healthier lives in a community. So she decided to start one.
So coming from Silicon Valley, I decided to just invest everything I have into this, buying a piece of land, and then all of the members of our community, you know, they would know that they're on a sure foundation. We're not going away, and we're here for the community.
Residents are like-minded and open people and have to be open to interacting with their neighbors. Everyone who lives here also has to sign a membership and community agreement, as well as go through a background check.
Here we have stairs going up to our loft, and voila, you have a storage here.
When you look around these homes, you will be amazed at how many things can fit. It's almost like a big game of Jenga. A loft bedroom over a bathroom and kitchen makes perfect sense. And many live by the motto, there's a place for everything and everything in its place.
It's amazing how much things they can actually put in the space, and you can just go vertical.
Austin Live Work chose tiny homes because it gives residents the flexibility to move around and come back. But there is another reason why the tiny trend keeps spreading.
But we're finding actually a lot of people are doing it because of affordability. So they're staying here with us, and then, you know, most of them own their houses outright, so there's no more mortgage to pay.
For Reba, it's about community.
So everybody's really open, accepting, and we help each other out. If somebody has a need, there's always someone that can reach out.
And she highly recommends it.
You really have got to have this desire to live smaller. And if you do, go for it.
And this is the group's first project, but they would like to venture out across the country. They do rent out some of their tiny houses on Airbnb, so you can try it out for yourself. And they have all that rental info and resident info on their website, austinlivework.com. I think it's really cool that you can rent it on Airbnb.
Yeah.
Try it out for a day or two and love it or hate it.
See if you can really
I like that
do
it's
the tiny home.
yeah, and it's less to clean.
Oh, that would be
That
nice.
is that
Yes.
seems nice.
And then less clutter. You really figure out what do you need, what can you live without.
Yes.
Easily figure
Yes.
that one out.
The Opportunity Village is made up of 23 tiny homes, and the residents who live here are required to participate in a 3-step program towards success. Adding a home to the block of second chances.
It's really designed to be a hand up instead of a handout.
Dream Center Executive Director Chris Wilson says the Opportunity Village is open to homeless people who are open to change.
We're not an emergency shelter for somebody who just comes in off the street wanting shelter for the night.
No, Wilson says the residents here have to prove that they are committed.
They have to take classes, they have to go to counseling, they have to show up for doctor visits.
In Phase 1, each resident is given an individualized success plan and a 168-square-foot home. When residents achieve certain goals, like getting a GED, Wilson says they move into a slightly bigger Phase 2 home.
You will be healed. You will be a productive and positive person in this community again.
Angela Lowe says her past was filled with abuse, illness, and addiction. She arrived at the Dream Center,
Barely hanging on to life, literally, to breathe.
Now she has a place to stay with people who believe in her.
Today, I'm okay with me, and I can love myself again.
The Dream Center also bought 10 Phase 3 homes located off-site. By the time a resident moves in there, they will be independent and employed. Brenna McDavid, WYFF News 4 in Easley.
Some of Denver's homeless now have a safe place to call home. They are living in tiny homes. Well, we've been reporting on these units since construction began earlier this year. They're at 38th and Walnut, right in the Rhino District. Andrea Flores has been following the progress of these tiny homes for us. And Andrea, looks like people are starting to settle in.
Well, they certainly are. The application process began months ago, and the requirements were simple: homelessness, no illegal drug use, and no violence. 13 people were picked to live in these tiny homes, and residents tell me they say this is the perfect way to get a taste of what it could be like to live on their own.
That morning, I had gotten woken up by cops as if I was being a criminal.
1 month ago, Amanda McDougald was living on the streets.
That night, I was in a house, I had a roof over my head, so it's a huge blessing.
Today, she has her own home near 38th and Walnut and says it's a step up from living in a shelter.
I have insomnia and PTSD, and I have high anxiety, and I don't do well with the shelter life for that reason, and also because I'm sober myself, and you're around a lot of drug users and stuff like that in a shelter, and it's just not conducive to staying sober.
Beloved Community Village houses 13 of Denver's homeless in 11 tiny homes, complete with a library.
Well, we have new ones now.
And community garden.
We have a nice huge zucchini there and a big squash growing over here.
Organizers hope the pilot program will become permanent.
And I hope that we can scale this and that we can create these throughout the city so that we can deconcentrate homelessness from the downtown corridor and really engage people back into communities where they belong. People need neighbors.
For now, residents say they're grateful for a second chance to get back on their feet.
Having a place to lay your head and then leave your stuff, especially, makes it so much easier to go out and find work and move forward and become a successful member of society again.
Now, as you see, there is so much that can be done with very little land and space. You don't need a huge amount of land to have such a community. Now, something like this would be ideal for groups of 3 to 10 people who wanted to come together, who saw the need for this to establish a really small community of tiny home dwellings that are affordable and everyone working together, of course. This would have to be something where people understand that they have to pull their own weight, that there are rules and guidelines, and they're not coming there expecting that everyone else is going to take care of everything and they just move in. We understand that not everyone can afford to just do that. When we look at some of these organizations, such as those in the video, these are organizations that get funding for this, or individuals who have large sums of money to invest into this and allow others to join in for their monetary contribution as well. But when you're working with little money, there has to be a mindset where everyone is going to work together to make this happen, because it's not fair when you have individuals who want to pour all of the weight onto someone else just because it's their idea. They are expecting them to put all the funds into a project such as this. In order for something like this to be successful, you have to be not only not like-minded. Like-mindedness goes a lot further than everyone thinking that something is a good idea. But you have to be willing to get your hands dirty. You've got to be willing to put forth your effort, put up your money into the project by buying your own structure. Now, someone else may have the land, 1 or 2 acres, or you can go in with a group and say, hey, why don't we all buy this 2 acres for I'm just going to throw a number out there because depending on what area you're in, sometimes you can get 2 acres of land for $2,000. It really depends on what area you live in. But just say you had a group of 5 to 10 people who were willing to go in and purchase the land together, maybe a couple of acres in an area that your city or county would allow for such a project. Now, if you all put your money together, that makes it a lot easier than one person coming up with all the money and having to struggle their way through this. And then everyone purchasing their own individual tiny home structure. Now, the ones that you saw in these videos, different kinds were put together. Some were a lot more elaborate than others. Some are just very simple and basic. It depends on what you want. But in the previous video that I did talking about tiny homes, I actually showed that there are a lot of companies around the country that actually do the shell of cabins. Okay, some people are even using the upgraded sheds to convert. There was actually a unit at Lowe's at one time, Lowe's or Home Depot, that was actually a small cabin shed unit that had an upstairs to it. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they only wanted roughly about $10,000 for the unit. But the problem with Home Depot and Lowe's is you have to buy it outright unless you have some type of credit card with them. But with some of these individual companies that do the cabins and the sheds off of their lot, many of them only require a small amount down, sometimes $500, $600, $700 down, and you can pay them $200, $300, $400 a month for the shell, and you finish the shell at your pace, at your leisure, and based on the budget that you have for the project. And I would say every state is different. Some states, some companies are in more than one state, but if you look up, and if I can remember, I can put some links in the description area as well, for companies that may be nationwide that build these cabins and have different locations around the country. But we've been into some of them, depending on the amount of space you need. Some of them can be very spacious. Some are very small. If you're a single person, you're not going to need a huge amount of space. So you want to get something that is within your budget, within your reach, and providing the space that you need for everything that you want. A lot of people are getting into this downsize mentality because it's really expensive to take care of all these big houses and big mortgages and all of this, especially with the economy going down very fast. Some are not experiencing that at this point, but at some point you may. So if you can afford to come together with others to make this happen a lot sooner, I think it's a great idea. But it's definitely one of those things you pray for. You just can't look at a person with a smile on their face saying howdy doody to you and decide to do a project such as this. You have to make sure that you pray first, because it can be a disaster when everyone, and I'm not going to keep saying like-minded, because we think like-minded is a person who thinks this is a great idea along with you. But like-minded has to be a spiritual mindset too. You have to be spiritually connected as well. People who understand the laws of the Most High, people who will do right by you, people who won't lie on you and mistreat you and put all of the workload on you and whatever. You want people that are going to work. Even with some of these organizations that we showed in video, they have requirements. You can't just move there. There are things that you have to do, responsibilities that you must adhere to. And so I definitely believe that coming together with others is a great idea, but ground rules have to be laid probably even before you even get started. And people must be vetted very, very thoroughly. Background checks, whatever it is you must do, because at the end of the day, you're going to be living around people. And you want to make sure that, especially in a community setting, that you can trust those who you're living around. That is a very important factor. You want to make sure that policies about drugs and alcohol and visitors and all of that stuff is in place. As you saw in the videos, they gave some very good examples of things that they require. You see, it's really great. But see, I'm not just talking about this because it's a great idea, but I believe that necessity is upon us. As the economy begins to topple more and more, we've got to start thinking of other ways to soften the financial blow of living. And so imagine coming together with a few other families on 2, maybe 3, 4, 5 acres, whatever you all agree upon and can afford. Imagine coming together with people who are willing to work, get out there in the garden, plant food, take care of the food. If you have livestock, taking care of the livestock, and those who understand just how important this is and how serious life is about to be. Life is taking a serious turn for the whole world. If you look at biblical prophecy, the whole world is going to suffer, not just someone in a third world country, but people who believe that they are safe in these lands of what they think or believe to be milk and honey. Things are getting rough. And so we need to start considering other ways of living where we can take care of each other. This is not for everyone. I agree that it's definitely not for everyone. Some people would do good just with their own family on some land somewhere, but maybe depending on who you're willing to bring along with your family, sisters, brothers, cousins, or whatever, a family setting might be great where you all have your tiny homes there together, ready and willing to work together to make this happen. As a matter of fact, if you have such a family, I think that is the best way to go because, or friends, people that you know, because appealing to people on the internet and thinking that this is a good idea, been down that road before. I don't think that's a good idea. You should definitely allow the Most High to lead you and guide you. As in the case of one of the videos that I showed, there was advertisements that went out for a community, and they told in the advertisement what they expected. Usually when Gentiles deal with each other, they can get along, but there's something that prevents us as a people from being able to get along and do right by each other. The Gentile, the Asian woman who started the community, she took all of her savings, invested it into land, and opened up the community to others that she didn't necessarily know, but because she established it as a business, she established guidelines, and she have legal rights when doing it that way. So if things don't work out with someone, she will have legal rights to be able to remove people from the property. But it's sad when you have to do that because, again, people are not always upfront and straightforward with you in terms of what they're willing to do and what they can do in a community situation. If you're going to require that people work on community-related projects such as gardening, how much time is going to be put into it. If there are going to be other projects like taking care of the animals, even if there are common areas that need to be taken care of. If there are monetary things, obligations that they're going to, and which I'm pretty sure if it's anything like a subdivision, they usually have some type of monthly obligation or a yearly obligation financial obligation, which is to help keep the community going. And so all of those things need to be talked about, because you don't want to get in the situation where people think that they give you a little money and they never have to help with anything else again, but your expenses will remain. So this is why I think it's a great idea to try this with your own family and friends. Or if you're going to do it like a business, like the one video that we showed, then make sure you have some strict guidelines in place before doing this, because again, a lot of people are talking about downsizing. A lot of people are talking about community living. A lot of people are talking about the economy is getting rough, extremely rough. And so we need to consider, before everything falls apart, what we must do. You don't want to wait until they fall apart and then start scrambling around for solutions. But I think tiny homes is definitely something to look into, making sure that you're checking with the local cities and counties to make sure you are within their guidelines before purchasing any land. Making sure that you can do this, because this is definitely the wave of the future. If you do any amount of research on YouTube, you're going to see that tiny home living is picking up speed. A lot of people are bouncing those big houses, and they're like, okay, time to downsize. Don't need all of this space. It costs too much, so let me live within my means. Lots of people are doing that. So one last thing before I close out. Imagine, just say you decided to do this with 3 or 4 other family members, and it's a total of maybe 4 or 5 of you on 3 acres of land. And you spent very little for the land, maybe $7,000. All of you together came up with the money, maybe $1,500 each to buy the land, and then you all put your tiny homes on the property, and you designated certain space for your animals and livestock and your garden and all of this. Now imagine all of that is paid for. Once you get the land, just say you chose to get the cabins that you can pay a little bit at a time. Within 2 or 3 years' time, those things are paid off, unless you get a windfall and you say, look, this thing is only $7,000. I'm just going to go ahead and pay it off. And once it all is all paid for, the only other thing you'll have to worry about or concern yourself with is the taxes. And on something that small, your taxes are going to be very, very minute. But splitting that with 4 or 5 individuals or small families, your cost of living is going to be so small that you're going to want to kick yourself for all of the years of pouring money down the drain, either renting or paying high mortgages, and realizing I didn't need all of that in the first place. When we sat back and we thought about how much we pay in utilities, and it's still not as warm as we would like it to be because of the old house. These old houses are very drafty and not that, well insulated. So you say to yourself, man, I just blew all of that money on utilities. Had we did this is how life would have been. We would have owned this without all of the expenses. You live and you learn. This is definitely a learning curve for us, family, where we've got to get with the program. Times are getting rough, and since you know they are ahead of time, you have time to do something about it. You have time to work on your situation, to seek out others with serious, real, definite like minds, both on a natural and a spiritual level, so that you all can come together and put this program in action. Buying the land, buying the cabins, helping each other get them together, planting food, raising livestock, catching water, whatever it is you must do. I think it's a plan that we all need and must consider. And with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and close out this video, but I hope I am giving you something to think about, family. So much to think about, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to visit this subject again, because I think it's time. It is definitely time. With that, I will say shalom. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.